What if I told you that not every war was fought with blood and bullets? What if battles have been waged over absurd things like a missing ear, a stolen pastry, or even a dead pig? Wars where victories were meaningless and the reasons were beyond bizarre. Welcome to the strange side of history, where conflicts broke out over things so trivial they make you question how we ever managed to survive as a species. Intrigued? Then let's dive into the weirdest wars you've probably never heard of. Let's start with a border incident that got wildly out of hand: the War of the Stray Dog. In 1925, tensions simmered between Greece and Bulgaria, two neighbors who didn't exactly get along. One day, a Greek soldier was patrolling the border with his dog when the dog, oblivious to international politics, chased something across the border into Bulgaria. The soldier went after his dog and was promptly shot by Bulgarian border guards. Greece was furious, demanding an apology. Bulgaria refused. Within days, Greek troops invaded Bulgaria. Yes, an entire invasion triggered by a runaway dog. Though this war only lasted for 10 days and ended with a League of Nations intervention, it cost nearly 50 lives. And that's all over a dog that probably had no idea it was causing international havoc. Next, we've got the Pastry War between France and Mexico. In the 1830s, Mexico was in turmoil, and French citizens living there weren't exactly loving it. One French baker claimed his pastry shop had been damaged by Mexican looters, and he demanded compensation, a whopping 600,000 pesos. To give you perspective, that was about 10 times what a typical Mexican worker earned in a year. Naturally, Mexico refused, probably thinking 600,000 pesos for pastries. But France wasn't laughing. King Louis Philippe saw an opportunity to flex some muscle and sent a fleet to blockade Mexico. Things escalated into full-on warfare. Eventually, Mexico caved and paid the baker his absurd demand, all for the price of a pastry, or maybe a whole bakery's worth. A pastry dispute turned into a costly military conflict, quite literally, one for the history books. And now, let's talk about the Pig War. No, that's not a typo. In 1859, a dead pig almost dragged two nations into a war. Here's the story. San Juan Island, located between the US and British Canada, was in a bit of a gray area, claimed by both the US and the British. One day, an American farmer named Lyman Cutler found a pig rooting around in his potato patch. Furious, he shot the pig. The pig belonged to a British settler who demanded payment for his porker's life. Cutler refused, sparking a full-blown diplomatic crisis. Both the US and British authorities sent military forces to the island, each refusing to back down. Thankfully, no one else got hurt, except the pig, of course. Cooler heads eventually prevailed, and in a bizarre peace deal, the US and Britain jointly occupied the island for over a decade. They both got to claim it without anyone firing a shot, all over a pig. Let's move to Australia and one of the strangest wars in military history, the Emu War. In 1932, Western Australia was overrun by emus, massive birds that had no respect for farmland or crops. Farmers begged the government for help, and in true Aussie fashion, they sent in the army. Armed with machine guns, the soldiers soon found that emus were more formidable foes than expected. The birds were fast, hard to hit, and had a knack for dodging bullets. After weeks of frustration, it became clear the emus were winning. The army eventually withdrew, defeated by a bunch of large, flightless birds. The Great Emu War was an embarrassment, but it's left us with a truly hilarious story about military miscalculations. And finally, we've got the football war between Honduras and El Salvador. Now, to be fair, this wasn't just about soccer, but the rivalry between the two nations reached a boiling point during the 1970 FIFA World Cup qualifiers. Each match between Honduras and El Salvador turned increasingly violent, both on and off the field. With tensions escalating, riots turned into outright warfare. El Salvador launched an invasion of Honduras, and for 100 hours, the two nations were locked in a bloody conflict. The war didn't last long, and peace was negotiated, but it left hundreds dead and highlighted how deep-seated tensions can sometimes spill over, even through something as beloved as football. So next time someone tells you that wars are always about power, land, or resources, remember these strange stories. They're a reminder of how wildly unpredictable human history can be. Wars over dogs, pigs, pastries, and emus. Proof that sometimes the reasons behind our conflicts make no sense at all. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next.